In the early hours of a quiet Minnesota morning, as the rest of Minneapolis settled under a blanket of cold dawn fog, a series of unmarked black SUVs rolled slowly into a neighborhood that had never seen anything like it. No sirens, no flashing lights, just a silent, synchronized convoy that felt like the opening scene of a movie nobody realized they were starring in. Inside those SUVs were agents wearing the unmistakable jackets that make every American pause, bright yellow letters on navy blue windbreakers. FBI. Neighbors peeked through blinds, whispering, clutching their phones, but too stunned to record. It wasn't every day that federal agents moved with that level of coordination and purpose. And it definitely wasn't every day that their destination was the home of one of the most recognizable lawmakers in the country, Representative Ilhan Omar. At first, nobody knew what to think. Some assumed it was routine security, maybe a protective detail. Others thought it was some kind of misunderstanding. But the moment the agents lined up, divided into teams, and approached the home with controlled urgency, it became clear. This wasn't routine. This was an operation. And it all started because of something the FBI reportedly stumbled on days earlier. Something unexpected. Something strange enough to trigger a full-scale escalation. For weeks, federal analysts had been combing through a separate investigation about an unrelated political group operating out of the Midwest. It was the kind of inquiry that usually stayed quiet, tucked in the background, handled by analysts working late nights under fluorescent lights. No one expected the case to take a sharp turn toward Minneapolis, and definitely not toward a sitting member of Congress. But then came the discovery. A small encrypted folder buried inside a larger archive, mislabeled and almost overlooked. Once decrypted, it didn't contain what the analysts thought they were going to find. Instead, it held documents, logs, and communications that referenced meetings, addresses, and coded messages. And some of those references pointed directly to locations connected to Ilhan Omar. It wasn't evidence of wrongdoing, not yet, but it was unusual enough to raise eyebrows at the Bureau. When an elected official's name appears repeatedly in strange encrypted files during an unrelated investigation, protocols demand clarification. And that clarification can only come from a closer look. That closer look is what led to this morning. Agents surrounded the home, forming a perimeter. A knock, firm but procedural, echoed through the front door. What followed inside was calm and controlled. No shouting, no chaos, no drama, just federal officers performing an authorized sweep with professionalism and precision. The team inside focused on specific areas: study rooms, offices, storage cabinets, and one particular locked drawer that required Omar's permission to open. She cooperated fully, composed, steady, even asking questions as the agents worked. She didn't look surprised, but she did look concerned, the kind of concern anyone would feel when their home suddenly becomes the center of a federal operation. When agents finally reached the drawer, they paused, documenting everything, gloves already on, cameras ready. And when they opened it, that's when things shifted. Inside was a collection of handwritten notes, personal logs, and printed emails, none of which were illegal on their own. But tucked between them was the item that changed the tone of the room. A small black external hard drive sealed inside a protective case, unlabeled, unregistered, and not matching any device that had been declared on the standard inventory forms Omar had submitted earlier in the year. Agents exchanged glances. The atmosphere tightened. The drive didn't look suspicious at first, but the timing, the context, and the unexpected encrypted references in the earlier investigation all elevated its significance. An evidence bag was opened. The room became silent enough to hear the soft crinkle of the plastic as the drive was placed inside. And that was it. The moment that transformed a simple, clarifying visit into a developing federal story. Outside, whispers had evolved into neighborhood-wide theories. People stood on porches pretending to check their mail, but everyone knew they were watching everything unfold. Local news helicopters eventually appeared in the distance. Minneapolis wasn't going to stay quiet for long. Inside the home, agents informed Omar that they would be taking the drive in for analysis. She nodded, asking calmly what the next steps would be. The lead agent explained the process: forensic imaging, file reconstruction, and content verification. Standard steps, but the implications were far from standard. By midday, the story had already hit newsrooms. Headlines exploded online, speculation, confusion, hot takes, political debates erupting before any official statement even existed. Some claimed the FBI had found something explosive. Others insisted it was a misunderstanding, a routine inquiry blown out of proportion. And through all the noise, the Bureau stayed silent, issuing only the most standard line: ongoing investigation, no comment. Meanwhile, analysts at a federal cyber lab sat in a secure room staring at the external drive now connected to an air-gapped workstation. Layers of encryption began revealing themselves, one, then another, then another. Whatever was inside wasn't meant to be accessed easily. Hours passed. Each new stage of decryption deepened the mystery, with analysts realizing that this drive wasn't random. Someone had gone to great lengths to hide whatever was stored in it. By evening, federal officials briefed internal supervisors that the contents were non-standard, unexpected, and potentially significant to the earlier investigation. But they refused to clarify further, even within the agency, keeping the details limited to a very small circle. Back in Minnesota, Omar released a calm but firm statement emphasizing her cooperation and expressing confidence that the investigation would clarify everything. She declined interviews, choosing privacy over public sparring, a decision that only fueled more speculation. As the sun set, neighborhood whispers grew louder than ever. What was on that drive? Why was it encrypted so heavily? And how did its existence tie into an investigation that originally had nothing to do with Ilhan Omar at all? Rumors spread, theories multiplied, and the dramatic energy of the entire situation only intensified as federal analysts worked late into the night. Nobody knew what the outcome would be, but what everyone understood was that the story wasn't ending anytime soon. It was just beginning.